for who will be the chairperson for this meeting.
Martin, Andrew said he doesn't have the email for this meeting. He doesn't have a way to get in.
Okay, I think John and I will send him an email.
Who's that I'm supposed to send an email to? I'm sorry.
Andrew Earls.
Andrew Earls. Okay, I'll try.
While he's doing that, Laney, are you comfortable leading the meeting?
I am. Mr. Wicker's here, isn't he? I don't want to step on his toes, but I'm fine.
Sorry about the delay. I'm here now.
Mr. Wicker, do you have sound?
He's muted. If he's going to have audio troubles, oh, there he is. He's not muted. Mr. Wicker, are you there? Go ahead with the meeting. I'm having all kinds of difficulty.
I do hear you, Mr. Wicker. Okay, I don't mind reading.
Okay, then if we could get a second for Laney.
Second. Ron Wicker.
All right, and then I'll just to make things easier, I'll call the votes tonight. So Ms. Cade, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Boswell?
Favor.
Mr. Dancy?
Aye.
Mr. Fortes?
Aye as well.
Mr. Earls? Mr. Earls, you're muted.
Aye.
And then Ms. Wicker, or Mr. Wicker?
Aye.
Okay, Ms. Cade, you are at the helm.
Scary.
Let's see. Pull up the agenda for you, so that way you have something nice and easy to read.
Okay, thank you. There it is.
And meeting will call to order at 8:20.
Okay, I don't have a gavel, so bang, bang. So for the consent agenda, I've never done this before, so do we just
announce that there are no items for approval?
okay. shaped lot to allow approval of a development plat, VARP 20000007, on the request of Chad Gormly, the applicant, on behalf of Stephen Alexander, owner, for approval of a variance permitted in section 0.6.11B1 of the Unified Development Code, ordinance number 2000-T, to allow approval of the creation of an irregularly shaped lot. This is a plat of 4.63 acres being part of a 309.09 acre tract of land. The location is the west corner of County Road 127 and County Road 130. Do I hear a motion to approve? Or do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve. This is Henry Forces.
I second. This is Andrew Earls.
Thank you. So do we go to staff?
This is Vince Houston, city staff. Basically, this planning and zoning variance is a request located at the Pearland Regional Airport to allow the creation of an irregularly shaped lot. There will be a development plat application that will be reviewed administratively. Staff does recommend approval of the requested variance because it meets the criteria for approval found in the planning and zoning, found in the UDC for the approval of a planning and zoning request. The applicant is the property is located in the extraterritorial jurisdiction out at the airport, and the final slide shows the configuration of the proposed plat. The property is irregular shaped; it's almost shaped like an arrow. That concludes my staff presentation.
Vince, you on there it says the purpose is for an airport, but it's already at the airport, right? So it's just adding
Right.
on.
Yes, ma'am. There's a whole variety of uses out at the airport, but it is the property that's associated with the airport.
Thank you.
This property is located in the ETJ.
Right. Do any of the commissioners have any comments?
This is Ashley Boggle. I don't have any additional comments.
Ron Wicker, I don't have any comments.
Andrew Earls, no comments.
Brandon Dansby, no comments.
Commissioner Fuertes?
I'm good. No comments.
Okay. I believe that's all the commissioners. Do I need to go to public comment or ask the applicant? Is that something I need to do here?
Yes, because this is
A variance.
a variance and has a public input
Okay.
section.
Do we have anyone on the line that wishes to speak to this? I see some people on the line.
Kathy is here as part of city staff. She actually works with the communications department. I don't identify who the calling user number 2 is. But Martin, you may know better than I if anybody, or maybe complaints, you might know if somebody had signed up to speak on this item.
Yes, Lawrence. The only person or the only item that I showed a public comment signed in for is item B.
And that's the phone number 281254.
I don't have the phone number list in front of me, but I assume that John Knight or Kathleen will page in to let us know.
Okay.
But for this item should be fine.
So now go to a vote, or?
Correct. The vote would be the next step.
Okay. So all those in favor? So, you want me to go one at a time then, Martin?
I can go through.
Okay.
Let's start with you, Ms. Cade. How do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Boswell?
Aye.
Mr. Dansby?
Aye.
Mr. Fortes?
Aye.
Mr. Earls?
Aye.
And then Mr. Wicker?
Aye.
Aye.
6-0, so the item passes.
We'll move on to item B. You scroll up just a little. Okay, thanks. Consideration and possible action. Variance to create an irregular shaped lot with multiple frontage. VARP 20-00006. This is a request by Donna Eckels of ProServe, applicant on behalf of V&B Cornerstone LLC owner, for approval of a variance permitted in section 2.6.1.1B1 of the Unified Development Code. Ordinance number 2000-T from the requirements of section 3.2.142C and E of the UDC to allow approval of the creation of an irregular shaped lot with multiple frontage. This is a subdivision of 3.281 acres, being Lot 1, Block 1, Lizer Retail Center, according to the map or plat recorded under instrument number 2019-049147 and out of lots 3 and 4. The location is the southeast quadrant of Magnolia Parkway and State Highway 35. Do I hear a motion to approve?
This is Commissioner Fortes, Henry Fortes, motion to approve.
This is Andrew Earls. I second.
And the staff report?
This is Vince Houston, city staff. The purpose of this variance request is to add 0.63 acres of some property to an existing lot. This replat does meet the criteria for approval for a replat of a property. The property that's being added to the lot used to be zoned R3 single family, but it was recently changed to general commercial. So basically, they're just taking 0.63 acres, and this will allow, if granted, this variance will allow the replatting of an irregular shaped lot with double frontage. That concludes my staff presentation.
Thank you. Do I ask for the applicant or just go to the public?
We would typically go direct to the public comment at this point, Ms. Kay.
Okay, thank you. I think we do have some public input here. Sorry, I don't know your name, but is there any public comments at this time?
The public input was for Delta, not Beta.
Sorry, Martin, I missed that. I thought you said it was for this one?
No, ma'am, for item D, not item D.
Okay, thank you. All right, so moving on. Martin, you want to do the vote?
If there was no discussion from the commission.
Oh, sorry about that. Commissioners, does anyone have any discussion for this?
As Commissioner Fortes, it sounds to me like it's just adding a general commercial that was already next to it and a little cleanup as well. So no comments.
This is
Ron Wicker, no comment.
Ashley Boswell, no further comment.
It seemed like a good idea to me. I thought it was kind of a easy decision, so I don't really have any comments either.
Andrew Earls, I have no further comments.
Randy Dansby, I have no comments.
Sorry, I forgot to ask for comments, y'all. I think that's everybody.
Okay, and I'll call the vote. Ms. Cade, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Boswell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Dansby, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Mr. Fuertes, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Earls, how do you vote?
Aye.
And then Mr. Wicker, how do you vote?
Aye.
The item passes 6-0. And if I could remind everybody to mute your microphone when we're not in discussion.
And moving on to item C, consideration and possible action, Lizer Retail Center replat. I'm sorry, y'all, I'm having trouble seeing all of a sudden. Plat 20-00037, a request by Donna Eckels of ProServe, the applicant on behalf of V&B Cornerstone, owner for approval of the replat of Lizer Retail Center, replat number 1, creating one lot on 3.281 acres of land located in the southeast quadrant of Magnolia Parkway and State Highway 35. This is located at the southeast quadrant of Magnolia Parkway and State Highway 35. Staff report.
This is Vince Husted, city staff. Basically, this replat is basically a presentation similar to what we already heard for the planning and zoning variance that was just approved. Again, this will add 0.63 acres that was formerly zoned R3 single family and rezoned to general commercial, and it will add it to the property that is being replatted. This replat meets the criteria for approval in the open performance table. Staff does recommend approval of the replat, and the final slide shows the configuration of the lot. That concludes my presentation.
I forgot to ask for it to someone to move for it to be approved. Martin.
It's Ron Wicker. I move to approve.
Thank you. Can we get a second?
This is Ashley Boswell, I second.
Thank you, Ashley.
Ms. Cade, now that we've had the motion, the second, and the staff report, we would normally move on to the public input for a replat.
Okay. Do we have any public, anybody here from the public with input on this one? Do we have any public input?
No public input that I see.
Okay, hearing none. Martin? We'll move on with the vote.
All right. Ms. Cade, how do you vote?
I vote yes. Aye.
Ms. Boswell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Dansby, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Mr. Fuertes, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Mr. Earls, how do you vote?
Aye.
And then Mr. Wicker, how do you vote?
Aye.
And that is 6-0 to approve the replat. We'll now move on to item D.
Item D, consideration and possible action. The replat of Silver Pear, 518 Business Park, plat 20-00041. This is a request by Todd Slayton, I think, of True Meridian, of the applicant on behalf of Silver Pear Business Park for approval of the replat of Silver Pear 518 Business Park, including 2 lots and 1 detention reserve on 6.0190917 acres of land located at the northeast corner of Broadway and Hill House Road. The location is the northeast corner of Broadway and Hill House Road. Do I hear a motion to approve?
This is Andrew Earl. So move.
Henry Fortis, I'll second.
Thank you. Staff?
This is Vince Husted, city staff. This replat, as stated, will create 2 lots and 1 reserve located at the northeast corner of Broadway and Hill House Road. It meets the criteria for approval found in the code components table. Staff recommends approval of this replat, and the final slide shows the configuration of the replat. That concludes my staff presentation.
Thank you, Vince. Do we have anyone here for public input?
I've unmuted the caller and user that's on now if they would like to talk about this one.
Hello?
Mr. Slayton, the microphone is yours.
Mr. Slayton? Mr. Slayton, are you there?
Martin, do we know if the Mr. Slayton that called in is the same Todd Slayton on behalf of True Meridian who is representing the applicants?
I believe that to be the case.
As Mr. Slayton is not responding, I don't know if it's a technical issue or what it might be, but I'm going to presume if it is the same Mr. Slayton who is the applicant, that he's in favor of this particular request.
I would assume so as well. Should we wait and give him a second, or should we just move on?
If he's the same person who signed on for the applicant, and if y'all are ready to vote on the issue, that I don't think that that'll be an issue. If somebody has a problem or has some questions for it, then I would recommend that we wait for restoring connectivity to Mr. Slayton.
Well, let's let the commissioners comment and see if Mr. Slayton gets his audio working. Commissioners, do y'all have any comments?
Henry Fortis, I really have no comments. It sounds like you're just subdividing to either sell off or, make better use of. No problem.
This is Ashley Boswell. I don't have any additional comments.
Ron Wicker, I don't have any comments.
Andrew Earls, I don't have any comment.
And this is Laney Cade. I don't have any comments either. Mr. Slayton, if you're there. All right, we're going to move on then. Martin?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Cade, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Boswell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Dansby, how do you vote? Mr. Dansby?
Looks like he has some CPU or difficulties right now.
He's frozen.
Yeah.
Okay, then we'll come back to Mr. Dansby. Mr. Fuertes?
Aye.
Mr. Earls?
Aye.
Mr. Wicker?
Aye.
And Mr. Dansby calling again.
Martin, I would recommend, as we're having difficulty with Mr. Dansby at this point, to call the vote as a 5-0 in support of, and show Mr. Dansby as not participating on this particular item. Or at least for the vote on this item. I believe he commented earlier.
The minutes will reflect that. Thank you, Lawrence.
Okay, moving on to item E, consideration and possible action. A request by Manzor Memon, applicant on behalf of Esther Ondo, owner, for approval of a zone change request from single-family residential district to general commercial district on approximately 4.6 acres of land. The location is 3302 Dixie Farm Road in Pearland, Texas. Can I get a motion for this one?
Henry Fuertes, motion to approve.
Ron Wicker, second.
Thank you. Staff?
So this was the zone case from earlier
Right.
on the Dixie Farm Road property, changing from R1 to general commercial. I would suggest that the Planning and Zoning Commission table this item, so that way we can get back with the applicant, as there were some issues apparently with getting the applicant onto the call. And as there were some people that had some opposition to this, I would like to make sure that they have a fair shot at presenting their case.
Martin, I don't have a problem with tabling. This is Henry Fuertes. But if we table it at this point, it will not go back in front of the council members. Is that correct?
I would like for Lawrence to chime in on that, as I was trying to locate something within the UDC.
So it goes back to council for its vote on the issue, but not for a public hearing. So if they come back to you, if we present it, if you table it today, and then we come back and give them an opportunity to present any information or allow any other public members to come in, that information would only be reflected in the minutes. All of the council members who specifically said that they had questions would have to ask those questions when it comes in front of council as a new business item. So you can do one of two. If you tabled it, you get that opportunity for you to also ask questions if you had them, so that you can make whatever informed decision you have if you need additional answers. But if based on the zoning principles that were discussed at the meeting in regards to adjacency, you already know that the GB is not going to be for you, then you can go ahead and move on, because it wouldn't matter what the public was going to say at that point, because what the applicant says at that point, because you would seem to say, well, if I want it NSNS and not GB because it's too intense, whatever they say isn't going to be able to address that because you own the property and not the project. So ultimately, yes, council will have an opportunity to ask their questions when it comes forward as a new business item. If you need that opportunity as well, then I would recommend tabling it as Martin suggested.
If we vote on it tonight, what are those options?
If you vote on it tonight and you do not recommend the zoning, then council has to pass it with a supermajority vote. If,
Right.
on the other hand, P&Z votes on it tonight and you feel as though this should go forward as JB, then it would not require a supermajority of council when it goes in front of them and they get that opportunity to ask any of those questions that they have.
Martin, and
Somebody was talking, but I think we lost them.
Froze.
Lawrence, this is John. Can the commission also recommend a lower commercial designation somewhere below the GC?
Yes, that was John McDonald for those who didn't hear that. The question was whether the commission could recommend something less intense than GB. Because it is posted and posed as GB, you could go for something less intense. That is a possibility. Of course, the public didn't have a chance to say, hey, we're okay with that, but that is within your discretion, especially if you think that going from that Walmart coming down south on that corridor, you want to phase something in towards that residential area. So that is an option that you have as well.
As my only issue with that is, you know, the council didn't get to hear it as an NS, so we didn't get their input. The citizens didn't hear it as NS. We didn't get their input. And the applicant hasn't shown up for either. And I guess I get a little, this is old history coming in. You know, we usually wanted the applicants to be there to answer simple questions and to answer. We don't know. I'm assuming this piece of land is under contract and it's dependent on the zoning. I don't know if the uses that they mentioned would fit NS, the veterinarian clinic or whatever it was, or the other 8 uses that I'm sorry, what do we call them? Slots in that configuration in that building. So I guess I'm kind of stuck here. My mind's going in a circle. So
I think that's the general principle as to why Martin was recommending the table, because you
Yes.
don't get the answer to those types of questions.
This is Ashley Boswell, and I would like to move a motion to table 6 until we have an opportunity to speak to the applicant and have opportunity for comment and feedback.
This is Andrew Earls. I second.
Okay, then unless there is further discussion on the tabling, I will call the roll.
are we allowed to discuss once there's a motion and a second for a table?
Yes, sir. You are able to discuss it once there is a motion and a second for a table.
And I certainly don't have a problem tabling. My only problem is that, you know, at the time that they come back, it would be just to the commission and not to the joint public hearing. I almost wish we would have tabled it at the joint public hearing. At that point, they, you know, would have come back then.
If they come back.
Correct.
This is John McDonald again, and also, if you table it and the applicant has a chance to come forward, whether you approve or deny at that point, the applicant would be present for the council consideration, or we would invite them to that meeting, and therefore they would have the opportunity to respond to any council concerns at that time.
This is Andrew Burrows. My question is, when they come back to council, we can suggest NS at that point? I'm sorry, I guess that's a question.
So upon hearing the item the second time, you would still have to take a vote for a recommendation. and that recommendation would then be forwarded on to City Council.
I'm going to be against this. Sorry. Too many. Unless we can suggest NS now, I'm against this.
Well, is this something that if we table it, I'm assuming that John Martin, staff would be able to discuss with the applicant the comments that they've received and consider downgrading it to an NS before coming back to us?
I don't believe that we can have them change their application, but again, when this comes back to the commission for discussion and consideration, that NS can be your end outcome from that next meeting, if you so choose.
We definitely want to discuss with them the concerns that were brought up tonight and give them the opportunity to consider other options that may be available to them.
How about one of the empty strip centers, one of the 4 empty strip centers right around here?
Just want to add something real quick here. So the animal health hospital will only be allowed in the GC zoning. So that's one of the reasons why they went for GC. You know, if they could have accomplished this through NS or GB, they would have asked for that. But again, that could be a discussion with the applicant. But animal hospital can only be allowed by right in a GC zoning. That's why they went for that. And now if they have the ability to go back and modify their plans, then they can go for a lower zoning district.
There's 2 animal hospitals within a mile and a half already.
And I think that's what they are going forward with. That's part of the project. So the project involves an animal hospital in conjunction with other retail spaces.
Sorry, I'm just.
This is Andrew. Can staff pull up the map again, please?
Is this a good enough map to look at?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. So at this point, we have a motion on the floor. We have to vote on it, correct? That motion is to table this to the next joint meeting.
The motion was
There's discussion about whether you want to table it or not.
but there was not a specific date to the tabling. So I would ask Ms. Boswell for a particular date.
I would propose to table it until the next meeting, which would be May.
The first Monday of May.
First Monday of May.
There's an animal in this picture?
Which is May the 4th.
No, I think it's May 11th.
May 11th for the first Monday in May?
The JPH, you talk about the P&Z or the joint public hearing?
It would have to come up at the joint public hearing?
The joint public hearing is on Monday, May 11th.
No, it'd be the P&Z meeting, the first Monday.
Right.
It would be May 4th, correct?
Correct. May 4th is the first.
May 4th.
Okay. Well, that would be my motion, to table it until the May 4th meeting.
Okay, that has been seconded by Mr. Earls. And I will call the roll. Ms. Cade, how do you vote?
No.
Ms. Boswell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Dansby, how do you vote?
Vote aye.
Mr. Fuertes, how do you vote?
I'll vote aye.
And then Mr. Earls.
Aye.
If I remember correctly,
Mr. Wicker.
Mr. Wicker.
yes, Mr. Wicker, how do you vote?
Mr. Wicker appears to be on mute.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, so that is 5-1 to table to May 4th meeting. For item E. So we can move on to discussion items.
Discussion items with discussion spelled wrong. Any commissioners' activity report? Anything to report?
No, ma'am, I just look forward to, this is Henry Fuertes, looking forward to having a meeting with you all in a chamber or in a room and get rid of these technical issues.
And they go much faster, believe it or not, when we're
Yes, ma'am.
sitting there all together. They're a lot more fun. Okay, our next P&Z meeting is May 4th. We were looking everywhere for it, and there it was right there. All right. Anybody else?
If I may, before everybody gets off the line, I'm just curious, does anybody know where the raise hand feature is on the participant slide over there? I'm wondering if by using the raise hand feature that would facilitate using the next meeting. Looks like Martin found it. I saw him raise his hand. Brandon almost saw it, or maybe he waved and that was it. I'm not too sure. Henry sees it.
It's at the bottom right of the screen, underneath the attendees, if you have the attendees pulled up, or panelists and attendees pulled up, to the right side.
Okay.
So Laney has found it. I'm just wondering if we can incorporate that function inside, if we have an additional virtual meeting. I'm wondering if we can incorporate that in, and instead of going line by line asking people if they have anybody, if whoever is presiding over the meeting just says, does anybody have an issue with this? We can raise the hands, then we can see, and that might facilitate moving the meeting forward. It's a suggestion.
Great suggestion.
I assume that many of you have been in many virtual meetings. You may know of better ways. Whatever that better way is, I encourage you to share that with Martin, John, staff, or amongst each others, because we want to make sure we are as efficient as possible with your time, and we thank you for it.
I think these are going, pretty well considering, we're new at this. I'm a virtual teacher, so I'm not new at this, but a lot of people are new at this. I think it's going well.
Did y'all tell me you have an echo?
I think Brandon does because there's two of him.
Oh.
Brandon, are you there by phone and by computer, or just one?
Just one computer.
Okay. Don't know why that happened. Well, welcome, Brandon. I've got one meeting ahead of you, and Lainey, you did a great job.
Thank you. And I'm glad they introduced Brandon. They didn't introduce Henry, and I was mean. I said, who's Henry? So, Brandon, I'm glad they introduced you so I didn't have to act crazy. All right, y'all. So our next thing is adjournment. So 9 o'clock exactly, Martin?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
All right, everybody. Bye-bye. They introduced Brandon. They didn't introduce Henry, and I was mean.
Good night.
Who's Henry?
Thank you all.
Brandon, I'm glad they introduced you so I didn't have to act crazy. All right, y'all.
Good night.
So our next thing is adjournment. So 9 o'clock exactly, Martin?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
All right, everybody. Bye-bye. glad they introduced Brandon. They didn't introduce Henry, and I was mean
Good night.
to introduce Henry.
Thank you all.
Brandon, I'm glad they introduced you, so I didn't have to